10 days before Thanksgiving, I heard my loving daughter planning to humiliate me in front of every guest I had invited into my own home, declare me insane, strip me of my rights, and remove me from the house I had built my life inside. Betrayal by blood is not a wound that bleeds outward. It bleeds inward quietly behind the ribs, until the man you used to be drowns in it. I did not shout. I did not confront her. I did not storm upstairs and demand answers like some foolish old man, handing his enemies proof that he could still fight. I changed my plans in silence. I let her keep smiling at me across the dinner table. I let her keep calling me Dad in that sweet practiced voice. I let her think the trap was hers. On November 27th, when she called and asked, "Dad, where are you? The guests are waiting," I laughed for the first time in days and told her to look in my desk drawer. What she found inside made her scream so loudly that the phone distorted in my hand, and by the time she understood what I had done, the house was already gone, the money was already out of reach, and the world she had planned to steal had collapsed beneath her feet. My name is Robert James Gray. I am 68 years old, though some mornings my knees tell me I am older, and some nights my memories convince me I am still 40. Walking through the door after work with sawdust on my boots, and my wife, Emily, waiting in the kitchen with a wooden spoon in her hand, pretending she was angry because I had tracked dirt onto the tile agate. Then, I spent most of my adult life as a structural engineer, building things that were supposed to stand longer than the people who designed them. Office towers, municipal buildings, bridges that carried families, freight trucks, ambulances, school buses, all moving across steel and concrete I had helped calculate into being. I understood load paths. I understood stress. I understood what happened when pressure accumulated in a place nobody bothered to inspect. That understanding saved my life, though at first I did not know I was applying it to my own family. The appointment with my cardiologist ended 40 minutes early. That detail mattered later. If Dr. Lin had been running behind schedule, if the nurse had taken longer with the blood pressure cuff, if I had stopped for gas, if I had taken the longer route through She Boulevard instead of cutting across the quieter streets, I would have arrived home at 5 like Jennifer expected, and my life might have ended in court papers and sedation instead of strategy. But the appointment ended early, and I pulled into my driveway at 3:15 in the afternoon, the Scottsdale sun still hot enough to make the hood of my car shimmer. November in Arizona is not the soft autumn people imagine elsewhere. It does not arrive wrapped in fog and brown leaves. It arrives in glare. It bleaches the stucco pale and throws hard shadows under every roofline. The house looked exactly as it always had, low, cream-colored, familiar. The front porch shaded by the mesquite tree Emily insisted we plant the year Jennifer started high school. I sat there a moment after cutting the engine, one hand resting on the steering wheel, letting the sudden silence settle around me. My knees ached from the drive, and my right hand still carried the faint smell of antiseptic from the clinic. I remember thinking, absurdly, that I should water the lantana before sundown. That was how normal the world still felt. A man thinks of plants before he realizes his own daughter is planning to uproot him. I entered through the side door, the one that opened into the laundry room. I had built that addition myself one summer, when Emily grew tired of carrying baskets through the garage. The hinges were quiet because I kept them oiled, and I removed my shoes by habit because Jennifer had made a habit of scolding me about dust, since she and Brian moved in 2 years earlier. At the time, I had thought it was harmless, a daughter taking over small routines in a widowed father's house, a little irritation born from familiarity. I had told myself it meant she felt at home. I had not understood then that she did not want to feel at home. She wanted the home. Voices drifted from upstairs. At first, they were muffled by the hallway and the closed office door, and I almost called out that I was back. Then I heard Jennifer laugh. I knew that laugh. It was not the laugh she used when she remembered something funny or watched a silly commercial. It was the private laugh she made when she was pleased with herself, low and bright, a little sharp at the end. I paused at the bottom of the staircase, with one hand on the oak railing I had refinished 15 years earlier, sanding it smooth over 3 weekends, while Emily teased me for being obsessive about grain direction. Above me, Brian said something I could not catch. Jennifer answered clearer now, and every word seemed to descend one stair at a time and stop in my chest. Dr. Phillips signed everything she said. The assessment confirms progressive dementia. By Thanksgiving, we will have the guardianship hearing scheduled. My hand tightened on the railing. The wood did not move. I did. Brian's voice came next, low and eager. the voice of a man already spending money he did not own. And the house transfer documents. Once he is declared incompetent, Jennifer said, you will have full control. 680,000. We can finally pay off my debts and start fresh. For a moment, I stopped being a person inside a house and became a calculation. Variables appeared without effort. House value, estimated equity, time until Thanksgiving, petition preparation, medical fraud, motive, access, risk. My chest went cold. The kind of cold that does not belong in Arizona. The kind that starts under the sternum and spreads down the arms until the fingertips feel distant. Brian said he really does not suspect anything. Jennifer laughed again, softer this time. The old man does not suspect a thing. He still thinks I am his devoted daughter. 2 more weeks and this house is ours. I had heard men lie in conference rooms. I had heard contractors hide overruns behind polished language. I had heard city officials pretend numbers were smaller than they were. I had never heard betrayal spoken so casually by a voice that once called me daddy because she could not pronounce Robert, by the child whose fever I had sat through with wet towels, by the woman whose first car I had paid for, whose divorce I had helped her survive, whose second husband I had allowed into my home because she said they needed time to get back on their feet. The body has strange instincts. Mine wanted to move toward the danger. It wanted to climb the stairs, open the door, and force them to see my face. It wanted one clean wound, instead of this slow internal tearing. But something older than anger stopped me. Training, maybe. Engineering, maybe. The Navy years, maybe. When a structure fails, you do not run toward the crack with your bare hands. You step back. You identify the load. You find the supports. You decide whether to repair or demolish. I moved backwards silently, 1 foot at a time, through the laundry room and out the side door. I did not close it hard. I did not breathe loudly. I did not let the deadbolt click. I returned to my car, sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, and stared at the steering wheel until the world stopped tilting. 20 minutes passed, maybe longer. A delivery truck turned around at the end of the street. A neighbor's sprinkler clicked on, scattering sunlight into the air. Somewhere a dog barked. Ordinary things continued with obscene indifference. When I finally went inside through the front door, Jennifer was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner, and Brian was leaning against the counter scrolling on his phone. They both looked up. My daughter smiled the way she had smiled at me every morning since moving in. Warm, open, practiced. Dad, she said, how was the doctor? I had exactly 1 second to decide whether I could do it, whether I could let the lie continue, whether I could stand there in my own kitchen and answer normally to a woman who had just called me the old man upstairs. I manufactured a smile. Fine, just routine. She tilted her head with concern that would have convinced anyone else. You look tired. Doctor visits tire me out now, I said. Comes with the territory. Brian's eyes lingered on me. He had always been harder to read than Jennifer, not because he was smarter, but because guilt made him twitchy. He had the restless energy of a man, forever balancing debts and excuses. You sure you are all right, Robert? I looked at him calmly. Why would I not be? He shrugged too quickly. No reason. Just asking. Jennifer turned back to the cutting board. Hey, you're still planning to host Thanksgiving here, right? I invited some friends, the Hendersons, the Morales family, maybe 10 people total. I sat at the table and folded my hands. Thanksgiving. Yes, we should make it memorable. Jennifer smiled at that. Oh, it will be. I looked at my plate that evening and forced myself to chew. Pot roast, carrots, potatoes, food I had eaten 100 times, now tasting like paper and metal. Jennifer told a story about someone from work misfiling an insurance claim. Brian laughed too loudly. I nodded where I was supposed to nod. My body participated in dinner, while my mind rebuilt the house as a threat map. Staircase, safe, office, documents, bank accounts, possible forged medical papers, access points, time window, witnesses, evidence. They had made one mistake. They had said their plan out loud before it was complete. That meant they were confident. Confidence creates blind spots. That night after their bedroom door closed at 10:30 and the house settled into its familiar pattern of creaks and quiet pops, I waited. Midnight came. I dressed in dark clothes, not because I was doing anything illegal, but because the old Navy habits returned when the enemy was in the building. I moved through the kitchen and out to the side yard, where the trash bins sat behind a low stucco wall. 3 black bags, 1 recycling bin. I opened them carefully and went through everything with the patience of a man who had inspected rebar layouts before concrete pours. Coffee grounds, vegetable peels, junk mail, paper towels, pizza boxes, receipts. Then in the recycling bin, crumpled and shoved between cardboard, I found paper. Legal paper has a feel, heavier, smoother, too formal for trash. I smoothed the pages under the beam of a small flashlight. The title stared back at me: Petition for Emergency Guardianship and Conservatorship in the matter of Robert James Gray, an alleged incapacitated person. My name looked wrong on the page, as if it had been placed there by someone who wanted to turn me into an object. I read the allegations sitting on the cold garage floor. Significant cognitive decline, wandering at night, forgetting meals, leaving appliances on, confusion regarding finances, danger to self, vulnerable adult requiring immediate intervention. I read Jennifer's handwriting in the margins. Subject demonstrates significant cognitive decline and poses danger to self. One phrase circled in red: court must act before asset dissipation. Asset dissipation. That was what I was to them. Not a father, not a widower, not a man who had worked 40 years and buried his wife and opened his home because his daughter cried and said she needed help. I was an asset at risk of escaping. I do not know how long I sat there. Long enough for my legs to numb. Long enough for the rage to move past heat and become architecture. Hot rage breaks windows. Cold rage designs exits. At 2 in the morning, I folded the document carefully, photographed every page with my phone, uploaded the images to an encrypted cloud folder Emily had helped me set up years earlier after a neighbor lost everything to a house fire, and returned the original to the recycling exactly as I had found it. They could not know, not yet. Knowledge was advantage only as long as it remained asymmetrical. By dawn, I had not slept. The guardianship petition lay across my desk like a map of an invasion. I opened a fresh notebook and began writing in block letters. Assets, vulnerabilities, timeline, legal status, countermeasures. The act of organizing steadied me. My engineers had always joked that I could make a spreadsheet for grief. They were not wrong. Grief without structure drowns you. Betrayal without structure makes you reckless. I could not afford reckless. The house was valued at approximately $680,000. I owned it outright except for small maintenance expenses. The deed listed one name, mine. Jennifer and Brian had lived there rent-free for 24 months. Market rent in the area, roughly $2,000 a month, probably more. $48,000 in uncompensated housing. Utilities paid by me. Groceries often paid by me. Repairs performed by me. All while they prepared a petition to take control. I opened my closet safe using Emily's birthday, because even after 3 years of her being gone, that number remained the only combination I trusted. Inside were the deed, bank statements, old insurance policies, Emily's jewelry documents, my will, medical records, tax returns, and the kind of paperwork a careful man keeps because life punishes the disorganized. I spread everything on the bed and cross-referenced it with the petition. They had access to enough details to sound credible. They knew account names. They knew property value. They referenced my cardiologist, though Dr. Lin would never have signed such lies. So they had found another doctor. Dr. Phillips. I had never met him. That mattered. By 8 o'clock, I had read enough Arizona guardianship law online to understand the central point. A petition was not an order. Until a judge declared me incompetent, I retained full legal authority over my property. They were not planning to ask me for the house. They were planning to ask the court to remove my ability to refuse. If they wanted the house, I would remove the house. The simplicity of the solution almost made me laugh. Structures fail when their supports are removed. Their plan had one central load-bearing column, the assumption that the house would remain where it was until they could seize control. I would sell it before Thanksgiving. At 8:15, I called a notary office in Phoenix and requested an emergency appointment regarding property transfer and capacity documentation. The woman on the phone had an opening at 10:30. At 8:40, Jennifer came downstairs in yoga pants and a loose blouse, holding her phone and yawning. She looked younger in the morning, softer around the mouth, and for 1 week second I remembered carrying her from the car when she fell asleep after county fairs. Then she said, "Morning, Dad. You look awful. Did you sleep?" "Not much," I said, thinking about Thanksgiving. She poured coffee, watching me over the rim of the mug. "Good thinking or anxious thinking?" "Just thinking. Big family dinner. Your mother used to worry over every detail." Her face changed briefly, and I saw irritation pass beneath the sympathy. Mentioning Emily complicated her performance. "Mom loved Thanksgiving." "Yes, she did." Brian entered behind her, scratching his jaw. "You heading somewhere today?" I folded the newspaper. "Maybe. Bank. Library. Maybe lunch with an old colleague if he answers his phone." Jennifer's eyes sharpened. "Which colleague?" "Tom Bradley, from the Henderson Tower job. You remember the name?" She relaxed only slightly. "I think so." I finished my coffee slowly, giving them nothing else. The notary's office sat in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. Rebecca Pierce met me in a small conference room. She was not young exactly, but younger than I expected, maybe late 40s, with frameless glasses, a gray suit, and the controlled stillness of someone who had seen enough family disasters to recognize one before the first sentence ended. I handed her the deed first, then the photographs of the guardianship petition. She read without interruption. As she turned each page, her expression became less professional and more severe. "Mr. Gray," she said finally, "this petition claims you have advanced dementia, that you wander, that you forget to eat, that you cannot identify household bills, and that you present a risk to yourself. It includes an assessment from a Dr. Aaron Phillips. Did you ever meet this physician?" "Never." "Did anyone evaluate you for cognitive impairment recently?" "My cardiologist asked the usual questions yesterday. Date, medications, pain levels. Nothing more." She tapped the paper. "Then this is not merely aggressive. It may be fraudulent." I leaned forward. "I need to sell the house before they file." Rebecca looked at me for a long moment. Some attorneys would have slowed me down. Some would have buried me in warnings. She did not. Perhaps she saw something in my face, or perhaps she had seen daughters like Jennifer before. "Legally, if you are the sole owner and no court order restricts your capacity, you can sell. Practically, you need speed, discretion, and a buyer who will not collapse over a short timeline." "I have 8 days, maybe less," she said. "If they file emergency papers before Thanksgiving, they could try to freeze assets. Then I sell faster." She gave me the name of a realtor, Mark Jenkins, who specialized in discreet investor sales. She also drafted a limited power of attorney, authorizing her to act if Jennifer tried to interfere before closing. I signed it with a steady hand and watched her notarize it. When I called Mark from her office, I did not explain the family betrayal. I told him I needed a cash sale before Thanksgiving, and that I was prepared to accept a slight discount for certainty. He paused for 4 seconds, then said, "If the house is clean and the title is clear, I may have a buyer by tomorrow." "The house is clean," I said. "The title is mine." By noon, the machinery was moving. The next days became a theater of ordinary life, staged over a demolition site. I learned that pretending is exhausting in ways physical labor never was. I sat across from Jennifer at breakfast, while she asked whether I preferred pumpkin pie or pecan. I watched Brian pretend to fix a loose cabinet handle, while taking photos of my mail when he thought I was not looking. I listened to them whisper after midnight, their voices muffled but still legible to a man who had learned to hear loose bolts inside elevator shafts by sound alone. On Tuesday morning, an inspector came through the house while Jennifer and Brian were at work. I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks away with Mark Jenkins, signing preliminary disclosures while my home was measured and photographed by strangers. I should have felt violated. Instead, I felt nothing except the strange, quiet focus of a man placing charges along a bridge he had designed himself. Mark's buyer was a California investor who wanted the property as a rental. Full asking price, $680,000, cash quick close. The buyer never wanted to meet me. Perfect. On Wednesday, I opened a new bank account in Mesa where Jennifer had no history, no access, no idea. The manager asked whether I wanted investment products. I said checking, immediate access, statements to a post office box, no joint users, no family contacts. He looked at me with polite curiosity and did not ask why. That was why I liked him. That afternoon, I returned home to find Jennifer in my study. She jerked upright when I entered, one drawer open, papers slightly disturbed, her smile arriving half a second late. "Dad, I did not hear you." I stood in the doorway. "Were you looking for something?" "Stamps," she said. "Thanksgiving invitations. I thought you kept them here." I looked at the open drawer. "I keep stamps in the kitchen. Third drawer down. Always have." "Right," she said too quickly. "Of course. I forgot." The word forgot was a test. I let it pass. "Everyone forgets things," I said mildly. Her face softened with false relief. "Exactly." That night I replaced my real will with a decoy. I typed it on my old typewriter, made the signature slightly shaky, stained one corner with coffee, and placed it in the safe where Jennifer would find it the next time she searched. I leave my entire estate, including residence and all assets, to my beloved daughter Jennifer. It was bait made from her own fantasy. At 11:40, I heard her in my study again. At 11:53, I heard her on the phone, whispering through the wall. "I found his will. Everything to me. House accounts, all of it. No, he has no idea. He is still asking about cranberry sauce." I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and for the first time since hearing her upstairs, I smiled. The closing happened Wednesday, November 24th, 2 days before Thanksgiving. The wire transfer hit Thursday morning, $640,000 after fees and closing costs. Clean, final, irreversible. I sat in my car outside the bank for a full minute after the manager confirmed receipt. I expected triumph. I expected shaking relief. What came instead was grief so sudden I almost doubled over. Not because I regretted selling the house, but because selling it made betrayal real in a way overheard words had not. A home becomes a battlefield only after the war begins. I had just surrendered the ground to save myself. That night, Jennifer made turkey brine in the kitchen and hummed while she worked. Brian sat at the island with a beer, scrolling through his phone. They asked me whether I wanted the Hendersons seated near the window. I said yes. They asked whether the folding chairs were still in the garage. I said yes. Jennifer asked if I felt all right because I seemed quiet. "Just tired," I said. She came around the counter and kissed my forehead. I let her. There is a particular disgust in accepting affection from someone who thinks she is fooling you. It does not feel like victory. It feels like standing still while someone lays a hand on a wound they caused and asks why you are bleeding. On Thanksgiving morning, I rose before dawn. I had packed 2 suitcases the night before. Clothes, medications, financial documents, photographs of Emily, my navy ring, a few tools I could not bear to leave. I did not take Jennifer's childhood photos. That surprised me at first, then did not. The girl in those pictures no longer existed, and the woman upstairs had killed the connection between them. I walked through each room once. Kitchen, living room, hallway, study, bedroom. I touched the doorway where Emily used to lean when she watched me work at the desk. I stood in the kitchen and remembered Jennifer at 7 years old covered in flour because she wanted to help with biscuits. I stood at the foot of the stairs and remembered the exact sound of her voice, saying the old man does not suspect a thing. Memory is cruel because it refuses to replace what came before. It layers everything together until love and betrayal occupy the same room. In my study, I placed an envelope in the top right drawer where Jennifer would certainly look. Her name on the front. Inside was a note and a copy of the sale contract. "You wanted documents. Here is the only one that matters. Purchase agreement dated November 24th. The house is no longer mine, which means it is not yours either. I hope your Thanksgiving plans work out exactly as you designed them. The father you wanted to declare insane." I photographed the envelope, the drawer, the contract, then uploaded everything to the cloud. At 6:15, I loaded my suitcases into the trunk. The porch light was still on. Jennifer had forgotten it the night before. I almost turned it off. Habit lifted my hand toward the switch. Then I stopped, let her pay for one more light in a house she had already lost. The Hilton Garden Inn in downtown Phoenix took cash for 3 nights. The desk clerk asked whether I was visiting family for Thanksgiving. I said something like that, then corrected myself silently. I was leaving family. There is no greeting card category for that. By noon, the room was arranged like a command post. Laptop on desk, documents in folders, Rebecca's number on speed dial, bank information secured, phone charged, voice recording app tested. I watched traffic move through Phoenix and waited for the moment the performance at my former home reached its third act. At 2:03, Jennifer called. "Dad, where are you?" Her voice was bright, strained, breathless. "The guests are here. The Hendersons just arrived. Everyone is asking about you." I looked at my own reflection in the dark laptop screen. I am exactly where I need to be. A pause. "What does that mean?" "Check my desk drawer," I said. "Top right. There is an envelope with your name on it." "Dad, this is not funny." "No, Jennifer, it is not." I heard movement, hardwood under her shoes, voices in the background, Brian asking what was going on, a guest laughing too loudly in another room, a door opening, the drawer, paper, silence. Then she said no. It was small at first, almost childlike, then again louder, "No, no, no, no. Brian, get in here now." I held the phone away from my ear as her scream tore through the speaker. "November 24th. He sold it. He sold the house." Brian took the phone. "Robert, what the hell did you do?" I turned on the voice recorder on my iPad. "I protected my assets from thieves. You cannot just sell the house. I owned it. I sold it. That is how ownership works." "You were manipulated," he said. "We will prove you were not in your right mind." I almost admired how quickly he pivoted to the script. "I have 3 independent psychiatric evaluations confirming full cognitive function, dated this week." "How many doctors do you have, Brian?" "One who never met me." His breathing changed. "Where are you?" "Away from you. We need to talk face to face." "No. Men like you only want face to face when paperwork fails." His voice lowered. "You are making enemies, old man." There it was, the mask slipping, the threat emerging. I looked at the recording timer and smiled without warmth. I already had enemies. I just did not know they lived in my house. I ended the call before he could answer. Then I blocked both numbers, saved the recording and sent it to Rebecca. She called 5 minutes later. "Robert, they filed emergency papers. Jennifer claims the sale was fraudulent and that you are in active cognitive decline. She is requesting an injunction to reverse the transaction and freeze your account." "Of course she is. Are you safe?" "Yes. Stay there. Do not speak to them. Do not answer unknown numbers. I will respond tonight." Outside the hotel window, families crossed parking lots carrying foil-covered dishes. Children ran ahead of parents. Normal Thanksgiving continued below. But inside room 417, my old life finished burning. The legal war began the next Monday. Jennifer arrived at the courthouse in a navy dress and pearls, playing the role of frightened daughter with chilling skill. Brian wore a conservative suit and held her hand. Their attorney, Marcus Webb, had the polished aggression of a man who used sympathy as a crowbar. He told Judge Hayes I had always been proud and independent, that my decline had been difficult for Jennifer to accept, that selling my house suddenly and disappearing on Thanksgiving proved impaired judgment. Jennifer cried at exactly the right point. She said she loved me. She said she only wanted me safe. She said the house had been her childhood home, and the sale was so unlike the father she knew. I sat beside Rebecca and listened. I learned something about evil that day. The most dangerous lies are not wild. They are organized around small truths. I had changed after Emily died. I had become quieter. I had forgotten a dentist appointment once. I had left a pan on low heat while answering the door. Each ordinary imperfection was presented as evidence of collapse. Jennifer did not need to invent a stranger. She only had to edit me. Rebecca rose with the calm of a woman placing a scalpel exactly where needed. She entered the psychiatric evaluations. She entered the property deed. She entered the sale documents. She entered my recording of Brian threatening me. She entered the photographs of the guardianship petition recovered before filing, with Jennifer's handwriting in the margins. When the phrase "the old man does not suspect a thing" was played in court, Jennifer stopped crying. Judge Hayes did not dismiss the case that day. Judges are careful when competency is alleged, but he denied the emergency injunction. The sale stood pending further review. My accounts remained mine. Jennifer's face hardened as we left the courtroom, and for a moment, in the hallway without the judge watching, she looked at me with such naked hatred that I felt the last living thread between us snap. "This is not over," she said. "I know," I replied. December was not a month. It was a sage. Jennifer and Brian filed supplemental statements claiming I had stolen Emily's jewelry from the family estate, though the estate was mine, and Emily had left everything to me. They called police. Detective Carter interviewed me at the station, while Rebecca sat beside me. I brought receipts, insurance records, photographs, and the original will. The theft claim collapsed in 2 days. They filed harassment complaints. Jennifer claimed I had called her 17 times, left threatening voicemails, and driven past her temporary apartment. Phone records proved I had not called once. Hotel security footage proved my location during the alleged visits. Officer Martinez closed the report and wrote that the complainant's allegations were demonstrably false. They contacted old neighbors. They told them I was confused, that I had been taken advantage of by a predatory realtor, that I was wandering Phoenix with cash in a suitcase. One neighbor, Mrs. Calder, called me crying because Jennifer told her I might be homeless. I had to explain that I was safe. Mrs. Calder apologized for believing even part of it. I told her not to blame herself. Jennifer had always known how to sound wounded. Pressure changed me slowly, not all at once. At first I remained steady because action requires steadiness. Then the delayed damage came. I stopped sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. I checked locks in the hotel room 3 times before bed. I kept documents in duplicate and then triplicate. I stopped eating breakfast because nausea came with morning emails from Rebecca. I avoided families in restaurants. I avoided fathers with daughters. Once in a grocery store, I saw a woman Jennifer's age helping an old man read a soup label, and I had to leave my cart in the aisle and sit in my car until the shaking passed. The mind does not understand betrayal immediately. It understands facts first. Later, in quiet places, it begins understanding loss. January brought the court-ordered evaluation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the court's expert, spent 6 hours with me in a plain room that smelled of coffee and printer toner. She gave me memory tests, logic problems, clock drawings, word recall, financial scenarios, ethical hypotheticals. She asked why I sold the house. Because the house was the target, I said. That sounds strategic. It was. She asked whether I believed Jennifer was evil. I considered that carefully. Evil is a dramatic word. I believe she made repeated choices to benefit herself by destroying my autonomy. Whether that is evil or merely selfishness with paperwork is a philosophical distinction. Legally, it was fraud. Dr. Mitchell made a note. "You seem angry." "I am angry." "Do you think anger affected your judgment?" "No. I think anger prevented me from surrendering to people who intended to exploit me." She studied me for a long moment. Some people might say recording family members and selling a house quickly reflect paranoia. Paranoia is fear without evidence, I said. I had evidence. Her report, filed January 22nd, was devastating to Jennifer's case. Subject demonstrates superior cognitive function for age. Recent actions, including relocation and property sale, show rational planning in response to perceived threat. No evidence of dementia, delusional thinking, or impaired decision-making. Full legal capacity intact. Judge Hayes dismissed Jennifer's guardianship petition at the next hearing. He looked irritated before anyone finished speaking. "Mr. Webb," he said, "your client's filings are unsupported by competent evidence and contradicted by the court expert. This court will not strip a citizen of his rights because his adult daughter dislikes his financial decisions." Jennifer stared at the table. Brian stared at the exit. I thought dismissal would feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like the end of defense and the beginning of offense. Rebecca filed my countersuit in February. $48,000 for unpaid rent, $50,000 for emotional distress, defamation, false reports, and attempted fraud. Criminal referral for forged medical documentation. Brian called me the day he was served. I recorded that too. Robert, he said, voice strained with forced reason. Let us be adults. We both made mistakes. Both. I asked. Fine. Jennifer panicked. She thought you were declining. She thought I was worth $680,000. He exhaled hard. We can settle. 20,000. That is everything we have. Everything you have is a changing number, Brian. 2 months ago, you thought everything I had was yours. You are going to bankrupt us. No, I said. I am going to let math finish what morality should have prevented. The civil hearing in March lasted less than 2 hours. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents with the expression of someone whose patience had limits and whose limits had been exceeded. Rebecca presented the timeline. 2 years rent-free, guardianship draft, forged assessment, false police report, harassment claim disproven by phone records, Brian threatening me on tape, Jennifer's notes about asset dissipation. Marcus Webb tried to frame Jennifer as a desperate daughter, overwhelmed by concern. Judge Morrison interrupted him. Counselor, concern does not require forging medical documents. The judgment came cleanly. $48,000 unpaid rent, $50,000 emotional distress damages, $98,000 total, joint and several liability. Referral to the district attorney for further review. Jennifer made a sound when the number was read. Not quite a sob, not quite a gasp. Brian turned toward her with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Not guilt, not fear, blame. Their alliance had depended on expected profit. Without profit, only accusation remained. In the hallway afterward, Rebecca said they would likely file bankruptcy. I know. You may recover almost nothing. I know. Then why pursue it? I looked through the courthouse glass at Jennifer, arguing with Brian near the elevators. Because a bridge does not need to remain standing after the people cross it. Sometimes the purpose of a structure is to carry consequence from one side to the other. Rebecca did not answer. By April, the collapse became visible. Jennifer lost her job at the insurance company after the court records reached human resources. Brian's consulting clients disappeared after background checks revealed the judgment and fraud referral. Their apartment went into arrears. Their cars became liabilities. Bankruptcy filings arrived in Rebecca's inbox. Total debts $340,000. Assets almost nothing. The first distribution check from the bankruptcy trustee was $347.18. I held it in my hands for a long time. That was the first money they had ever paid me willingly or unwillingly for the space they had occupied in my life. I did not cash it. I deposited it, then donated $350 to an elder abuse prevention charity. The next distribution was $892. I donated $900. Later, $147. I donated $150. Their debt became protection for strangers. That felt cleaner than keeping it. Jennifer began calling from unknown numbers in June. At first she apologized. Then she blamed Brian. Then she blamed stress. Then she begged. She said she had lost her job. She said Brian left. She said she was in Tucson working retail and taking buses. She said, I am still your daughter. I listened once, only once. Her voice cracked on the word daughter, and the old instinct rose in me like a reflex. For a moment, I was back in a hospital room holding her newborn hand. Then I heard the other voice layered beneath it. The old man does not suspect a thing. I deleted the voicemail. In July, I rented a small place in Sedona while looking for a permanent home. Red rock views, quiet roads, no guest bedroom. That detail mattered to me. I did not want space that invited return. I wanted a house designed around one survivor and no apologies. Jennifer sent a letter forwarded from the hotel. Her handwriting was still the same. Rounded, careful. She wrote that she had been manipulated, that grief over Emily's death had distorted everyone, that she never wanted me hurt, that if I could help with rent just once she could stabilize. She wrote, you taught me family never abandons family. I shredded it. In August, I bought a 2-bedroom house in West Sedona for $320,000. 1 bedroom for me, 1 office, no room for family theater. The day after closing, a wire transfer arrived from Jennifer. $2,400. Memo line final payment, sold car, please forgive me. Minutes later, a text arrived from an unknown number. Dad, I sent everything I have. I sold my car. I take the bus now. I am sorry. Can we talk? I transferred $2,400 to the elder abuse charity before answering. Then I did not answer. That evening, after the movers left and my furniture sat in uncertain positions around the living room, I walked the property line. Pinon pines, red dirt, long shadows. The air smelled like stone cooling after heat. I carried the old Phoenix house key in my pocket, the last physical object connecting me to the house Jennifer tried to steal. At the edge of the deck, I threw it into the canyon brush. It vanished without sound. My phone buzzed again. Jennifer, another number. Dad, please. I have nothing, no car, no savings, no family. You are all I have left. One chance. That is all I ask. I stared at the words until they lost meaning. No family. That was the first honest thing she had said. She had no family because she had converted family into opportunity and then lost the investment. For 9 months, I had not responded directly. That night I did. You have exactly what you built. So do I. The difference is I built mine on truth. Goodbye, Jennifer. I sent it, blocked the number, turned off the phone. The house settled around me. New walls, new locks, new alarm codes known only to me. My boxes remained unpacked, but for the first time in years, nothing in the silence felt dangerous. I stood in the center of the living room and waited for relief. It did not come. That surprised me at first. I had won. The house was safe. The money was safe. The court record told the truth. Jennifer and Brian had lost their jobs, their home, their credit, their marriage, and perhaps soon their freedom if the district attorney followed through on the forgery charges. Still, no relief came. Only quiet. That is the part people do not understand about survival. It does not return you to who you were. It only proves you did not die. The man who opened his home to his daughter because she said she needed help was gone. The father who believed blood created obligation was gone. The widower who thought loneliness was the worst thing left to fear was gone too. Jennifer had not taken my house. She had taken my ability to trust a soft voice at the dinner table. I walked to the office, opened the fireproof safe and placed the new deed inside. Then I locked it and spun the dial twice. Outside, the red rocks darkened into silhouettes. Somewhere far away, Jennifer was probably crying in a rented room. Somewhere in California, Brian was probably rehearsing explanations for his criminal attorney. I felt no satisfaction in imagining either. I felt no pity. They had become, whether in another state, destructive once, distant now. I turned off the lights and stood in the dark, listening to my own breathing. The war was over. I had won. But victory did not feel warm. It felt like a house with every door locked, every window checked, every room finally safe, and no one left inside but the man who had learned why safety had become necessary.